So yeah, thanks for being here. I know it's late in the day, so I hope I will be as entertaining as Tom before. So this is mostly the outline of the talk. I will explain what I want to do with shots, how I did my analysis, and how it can be applied to real football problem. So I think we can skip the introduction. So as it was said, I have a PhD in applied mathematics. I don't work in football. I work in retail, but I know football. I play football. I'm working on football datasets. So that's mostly it. And I'm French, but as I'm talking, you should know. So shots. What I want to do with shots is to see if we can analyze decision makings regarding shots. So in the data we have shots with the distance from the goal, angle, body part, type of assist, and stuff like that. And with this kind of data, we can build expected goal models. I will not explain expected goals. I think everyone knows. But this kind of models are limited. So we know that shot base can be useful if you want to have a model to bet on outcomes, if you want to analyze players, if you want to analyze team performance, it's good. But it has some limitations. So we need to do better. And limitations of shot-based expected goal models are the two I display here. So we don't have any notion of defensive pressure because we don't have the position of players except the one who is shooting. And we don't have the goalkeeper's location. So sometimes it's an open goal, the goalkeeper is out of play, so it's an easy shot, and the goal has an XG or I don't know 0.9 or something like that. So we missed this kind of informations. So that's why StatsBomb released 1.5 years ago freeze frame. So freeze frame is a snapshot of shots. So for me, it's just a snapshot. And in this snapshot, we have locations of players around the ball for every shot. And we have the position of goalkeepers too. So with this new information, we have a less biased model, hopefully. And XG are calculated now at StatsBomb with this kind of information. So we can add the notion of defensive pressure inside the model. And yeah, so smarter model with freeze frame. And the good thing about freeze frame is you have the location of players, so you can ask yourself, well, this guy took a shot, but maybe there were other options. Maybe some players were better. Well, maybe we can have better options. I will explain a bit after. So the problem is in shots, to convince you that it's useful to analyze, I have three things. The first thing is like there's a lot of shots in games and it's an important part of the game, so it's important to analyze, it's interesting, you don't need anything else. But still, the second thing is if you have a ratio between goals and shots, it's only 10% of shots ending up in goals. So it's really small, and there's a big room of improvement here. So maybe decisions were not good because maybe a pass would be better or maybe something else would be better. And the third reason is I think everyone in this room and everyone playing, watching football has said once why this player is taking a shot, because literally anything else would have been better. It happens every game. You yell at players, and it would be good if we can have players taking smarter decisions. So smarter decisions. So what do I mean about better options? Better options for me is you have a shot, you have an XG value associated to this shot, and you want to know, is there a teammate who is reachable? And if the teammate is reachable, does it have a higher XG value associated to it? So why we do this? Because we want smarter decisions, and we can analyze from a lot of point of view this kind of options. And we need to do two things. So we need to analyze possible passes. So is there a pass possible, and what is the probability of this pass? And we have to approximate XG value for teammates with the possible pass. I will explain. So first, a little bit about the data I used. So it's the data from the research competitions. So it's two French Ligue 1 seasons. So it's 760 games, 2.5 million events. But for shots, it's around 20,000 shots and around 20,000 freeze frames. So it's a volume interesting, but I think with more data we could do even more. So first thing is XG approximation. So the problem we have here is StatsBomb are calculating XG with the freeze frame. But if we are looking at hypothetical shots, we don't know the freeze frame because there is no freeze frame, so we don't know the XG value associated to it. So that's a problem we have. So the idea was to cut the pitch in zones. So I did 5x5 zones because it was a good trade-off between the amount of data I had and the approximation. And when you do that, you have a median XG value by zone, and you can use this to say, okay, this teammate is at this location, so the approximate XG value is approximatively the value we have in the table. So that's an approximation because we don't have, we cannot calculate it directly, so we had to have an approximation. If we had like 10 seasons or 20 seasons or 10 leagues, I don't know, I think the model would be better, but I had only 2 seasons, so it's good, but I think it could be improved with more data. For pass possibilities, there is one thing I tried first is Voronoi tessellations. So the idea was you have a zone associated to each player, and if the player, if a teammate of the shooter is, if his zone is associated to the one of the shooter, well, a pass is possible, and maybe we can look at this. So it's okay, but it's not enough, because if you do that, you missed some opportunities. From the snapshot we have here, the player on the left side of the box is not reachable with the model, but we can clearly see that it is reachable because there's a clear line between the shooter and this guy. So it's not enough to do Voronoi cells here. So I had to think of another way to do this. So the next idea was to say, okay, if there is an opponent between the shooter and a particular teammate, a pass is not possible. But if you do that and you say, okay, I have a point, which is the opponent, I have a segment between teammate and shooter, and you try to see if the point is on the line, it's almost never the case because it's only a point. And it does not make sense either because the player is not just a point on a frame, he has a volume. And the volume is not taking into account. So the idea was, okay, we have the location of the opponent. We draw an area around him to say, okay, this is his volume, more or less. So it's his area of actions. And we say, okay, if this volume is intersecting the segment, the pass is not possible. And if it's not, the pass is possible. So the best area we can have is a circle, because we don't have any directions or speed of players in the freeze frame. So we cannot use this to have a better area. But still, it can work like this. And the last thing is pass probability. So it's good to know if a pass is possible. It's better if we know the probability associated to it. So as I did for XG value, I cut the pitch in zones. I say, okay, from this area to any other areas, we have some passes in the data. And I took the mean percentage of completion of one zone to another, and this is my pass probability approximation. So again, I had only 2 years, 2 seasons of data. So with more data, I think the pass probability would be better too. So to sum up this, we have a better option if a pass is possible from the shooter to a particular teammate T, and if it's possible if the pass is possible, and the pass probability multiplied by the estimated XG value of this teammate is greater than the XG value of the actual shot, then this is a better option. So this is a model I have, and this is really useful to analyze if players are making good decisions, or if teams are making good decisions. So the first result I wanted to check is if better options are correlated to XG value. And as you can see here, it is. So if the XG value is decreasing, the number of better options for shots are increasing. So it's good. And we can see that with really, really small XG values, there's a lot of better options. So that's not surprising, but that's good that the model can capture this. So with the model like this, we know that it can have some value with this kind of graph. We can compare the number of better options, the number of cases where a better option exists, with the final ranking of the league, and we cut that by team. So of course, the percentage of shots with better options, the lower it is, the better it is, because players in that particular team did a great job at making decisions. So it's not perfect, but as you can see, PSG is number 1, and they finished number 1. It's the ranking from last season. Lille is second too, so it kind of works. Sometimes it's not working very well, and we have Angers, which is 6, and at the end of the table they were 13, so it's not working. But I think this is a metric we cannot use by itself. I think it's better to correlate with other metrics. But for this presentation, I wanted to just look at this metric and see what can we find here. Instead of looking at teams, we can look at play pattern. So if we cut that by play pattern, we can see that when it's a counter, the percentage is really low compared to anything else, which is expected because when you do counters, there's less player involved in general. So if there is less player involved, there's less better options, more or less. And from this table, we also see that there is few options when the play pattern is coming from the goalkeeper, which is expected because if you're starting from the goalkeeper, the defense should be in place, so it's harder to find good passes instead of shots. So that's normal that from goal kick and from keeper, the percentages are smaller. If we want to analyze by players, we can. So here I put the top 20 players of the 2 French seasons. I filtered by players who had at least 100 shots. So it's almost exclusively strikers. There is one midfielder, which is Oussem Aouar, somewhere. And it's normal because strikers are high up the pitch. So if they are high up the pitch, maybe there is the XG value is greater. And if it's not, maybe there is no other options because they are sometimes at the end of the sequence. So maybe we don't have any better options. Apart from that, we have like Edison Cavani, which is really better than the others. So maybe he's taking more smart decisions, I think so. And at PSG is always at the end of sequences too, so I think if it's at the end, maybe neither teammates are well in place to pass the ball, so I think there is analysis to do here, but I think Cavani, well, is a smart player and we can see it here. If you want to analyze player deeper, we can analyze their evolutions from one season to the other. So I just took the top 20 players from before and look at percentages from the first season I had to the second one. So as you can see, Cavani and Mbappé are remarkably constant. They have always a low percentage of better options, so I think they are making smart decisions. For player improving, we have the best ones are Aouar, Pepe, and Saïd. It's fairly young players, so they are improving. That's a good thing. But the most interesting thing is the player worsening. So there is Falcao, which if you are following the Ligue 1, he had a really worse season in last year than the year before. So we can see here in the data. For Neymar, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why it's like this. Maybe he did a lot of bad decisions last year, but it's not showing in his number of goals or number of assists. So I'm not sure. And for Gaëtan Laborde, in fact, he changed team from the first season to the other one. He went from Bordeaux to Montpellier. So maybe his style of play changes because he changes teams. And maybe he was overperforming for the data at Bordeaux. So it's not saying that he had the worst seasons, but maybe something has changed in his way of play, and we need deeper analysis to be sure. Okay, so to conclude this, the model is quite working for some cases. I think it can be really better if we had more data. More data would mean more accurate XG approximation and more accurate pass probability. So it's good to have more data. The possible pass model with the area around the opponents maybe could be further improved with more time and maybe new solutions to calculate this. And the last thing I put is the teammate hypothesis, because in this analysis I took the option of saying when the teammate will receive the ball, he will shoot. And it's not always the case. Maybe he will keep the ball, maybe he will dribble, maybe he'll pass to someone else. But we are lacking this sequence of events. So in this model, it's just, okay, he will shoot. This is his XG value, but we need sequences of data. But it's a first step toward the analysis of decision making for shots. So I think we can work from here. That's it.